past couple of weeks, I've been thinking a lot about the love of God and what all that entails, and what that means. It was really triggered by, Jen making the comment, a couple weeks ago or a few weeks ago about, the whole love is love, and trying to define that, and me missing the opportunity to read, what love is from Corinthians, and I read that last week, but I'm going to kind of go back over that again. But I kind of wanted to go through the different terms that the Greek language uses to describe love in its various forms. And, and usually Sunday mornings, I look forward to the fresh manna, So, I'll have my mind on something. God will be speaking to me throughout the week about things, but on Sunday morning I'll get up and I'll say, I just want a freshness to this. I want to know what your message is, and the word that came to mind this morning was Agapē, and that was the only thing that I was given. So so I kind of wanted to go back over these. I know a few years ago I did a message, or I spoke a message on some of these terms, but in going back over these, there's the what we see now is a circular definition of love. Love is love, and it really cheapens that word. It really cheapens what that means, and we need to understand what love is. So we've got some Greek terms up here. There's actually 8. I think a week ago or 2 weeks ago I mentioned that there were 7. A few years ago, when I was going through these, I missed one of them. I don't know how I missed it, but mania was the one that I missed. But going through some of these, eros is the romantic love. This is the physical, what we see. The lust, the passion, the pleasure. It's a very selfish love. It's what can I get out of this love relationship? Philia, that's the brotherly love. That's Philadelphia. It's named after that. The friendship, the affectionate love of friendship. Storge, that's basically family based. It's really between family members. It's a kinship based familiar love. Mania, that's the one that I'd missed a few years ago, and that's the obsessive love. That's where you get the obsession, jealousy, stalking, that kind of thing, and violence that stems from love. Ludus, it's a playful love. It's a crush, like puppy love, as we would call it. Pragma, that's the enduring love. That's built on commitment. That's knowing where the lines are drawn. That's understanding, that there are gives and takes in a relationship, because we have to know where our boundaries are, where our lines are, in that relationship. Okay, what's the word I'm thinking of? I can't think of the word that I'm trying to think of right now, but it's basically one it's a matured love. It's not paper thin, but it's grown over time, and that's you understand the faults of the other person, and you give grace in that. So that's the enduring love, the pragma love, and I know I messed this up last time. Anybody else have a way of pronouncing this? Philautia, my best guess. I've got a friend that studies. I know the end of it is probably Tia, because I knew someone who had a Greek name in school, and that's how their name was pronounced. Was at the end it was Tia, but so it's probably not a chi, at the end. So, but I have a friend that's that went through a Greek study, and he would probably laugh at that pronunciation. But this is the love of self. This is going up to the mirror and combing the hair, and look good, Being secure in yourself and loving yourself, which, and I'm not saying that any of these are, there are some negatives here, but I'm not saying that any of these standing on its own is wrong, But the final one that I wanted to talk about today is agape. That's the selfless, unconditional, the love for strangers, and that's the love of God. I entitled the message simply Agapē. And I have the little phrase down there, love is not equal to love, because this is where we're at in today's world. And we see these things, like you said, you go into a department store, you go in somewhere and you see, all of these shirts and T-shirts for, children, kids, It's all about me and me, mine, and there's a lot of messages out there that's confronting us today that you are all that matters, and whatever makes you feel good, you go for it, And this is what we're bombarded with today. It's a me culture. It's an I culture. There's they used to say there's no I in team, but when you get to the big leagues, there's an I there. You can clearly see it. You wouldn't have people like LeBron James who get out there and showboat and everything. So it has become such a me culture, such an I culture, and we've cheapened this word love in the English language. Going in Corinthians, and I pulled a lot of these. I usually go from the King James Version, but I wanted to pull a lot of these from the New King James because King James, it will use charity in place of love, and I understand what they were doing, because charity is something that you give and you don't you don't expect something in return, So I understand what the translation there was, but I wanted to go through and use the New King James to kind of solidify this. So in 1 Corinthians, and this is the famous chapter here, starting in verse 1, though I speak with the tongues of men and of angels, but have not love, I have become sounding brass or a clanging cymbal. And though I have the gift of prophecy and understand all mysteries and all knowledge, and though I have all faith so that I could remove mountains, but have not love, I am nothing. And though I bestow all my goods to feed the poor, and though I give my body to be burned, but have not love, it profits me nothing. Love suffers long and is kind. Love does not envy. Love does not parade itself, is not puffed up, does not behave rudely, does not seek its own, is not provoked, thinks no evil, does not rejoice in iniquity, but rejoices in the truth, bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. Love never fails. But whether there are prophecies, they will fail. Whether there are tongues, they will cease. Whether there is knowledge, it will vanish away. But we know in part and we prophesy in part. But when that which is perfect has come, then that which is in part will be done away with. When I was a child, I spoke as a child, I understood as a child, I thought as a child, but when I became a man, I put away childish things. For now we see in a mirror dimly, but then face to face. Now I know in part, but then I shall know just as I also am known. And now abide faith, hope, love, these three, but the greatest of these is love. And so, with the translation there of love, we see that word, and we see it everywhere. It's plastered everywhere. We have a holiday that is encompassed around this word, and so it's like anything else. It's become commercialized. It's this word is just thrown out there. We have emojis for it now. We don't even have to spell the word out. We just send it just carelessly out into the SMS messages, whatever. So The English language, though, it's a real disadvantage when it comes to accurately defining love the way that it was meant to be understood. You know, the person on the street is using the same word to describe the love of God and the impulsive love between two physically attracted people. You know, it really waters down what the love of God means and elevates those other forms, and it almost tries to set them on an equal footing. You know, if you just see the word of love, the word love out of context, you're really like, okay, so what does that mean? You love him? And, you know, we come up with these crazy ways of, okay, you love him, you love him, you know, it's like an elementary school thing, you know. So what is the magnitude, what is the extent of this love, you know? Love is meant to equalize all forms of love, therefore demeaning the agape, the love of God, you know, that love that comes from the Father and is supposed to indwell his people and represent him throughout the world, you know, and that's what is supposed to be the picture of Christ on earth through his people, through his body, you know, is that agape love. It goes out there and doesn't expect anything else in return and just gives. The servant, a servant to those around him, you know, and we see that, and we know that, you know, as Christians, we know, you know, what this love is. But if you talk to the regular person on the street, they'll say, well, you know, the Bible does say have love one to another, and I don't feel like you're loving me, you know. When you try to talk to them about things, you know, it's what they're really saying is, you know, I really don't feel like you're accepting my decisions and what I'm doing and the way I'm living my life. You know, it's a real, it's almost a brick wall that you run into, because then you have to go through and explain, okay, well, this is love and this is what, you know, the different forms are. So the challenge that I have for everybody is to, and I've done this in the past, is, you know, go out and try to, every time you see love or a version of love expressed, is try to identify, okay, by using the Greek terms, where does that fall? You know, where does that fall on that scale of the Greek terms of love, and 8 different ways you could define love in the Greek language, you know, and you know, like I said, I don't mean to beat up on the English language, you know, and I'd listen to, it was actually like a digital course on the English language, because I just love etymology. I love knowing, okay, how did this word get here, and how did it split off into Spanish and English, and it rooted in German, you know, and you know, knowing that, you know, these words are so similar. You have night in English, you have Nacht in German, you know, you have, you know, we make fun of the dachshund, you know, and renamed it the Spurhund, you know, because it was after birds instead of after badgers, you know, and understanding where all these words are rooted in, it really intrigued me. So I listened to this online digital course, basically going from how these languages were basically evolved, you know, throughout the centuries and different things. But you know, it talked about how the English language has soaked up so many other languages, you know. So you know, there's a great deal of our English language that came from French, you know, the earlier form of French, you know, and then we got some from like the Nordic, you know, the different Nordic countries that came in and invaded, you know, and tried to influence the British Isles and different things. So we have a mishmash of language here, but in that there's so much confusion, you know, and so we lose a lot of what the word or the context behind that word means, you know, and we just throw around the word love. And so when you go out and you see the word love, you know, try to identify, okay, what love is this? And it might get you out of some, you know, real problems, because if you walk in and somebody says, hey, love you, man, you know, it's like, okay. They stand there and have a puzzling look on your face, you know, okay, let's see, I'm going to identify that, you know, but you know, it's, you know, we need to really understand and grasp the concept of what the love of God is, and understand what the meaning of the other forms are, and understand where their place is. In Ephesians chapter 1, blessed be Blessed be the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, who has blessed us with every spiritual blessing in the heavenly places in Christ, just as he chose us in him before the foundation of the world, that we should be holy and without blame before him in love, having predestined us to adoption as sons by Jesus Christ to himself, according to the good pleasure of his will, to the praise of the glory of his grace, by which he made us accepted in the beloved. And there's two different forms of the agape here, where it says before him in love, without blame before him in love, that's agape, and then accepted in the beloved. And the beloved is actually a form of agape, which is agapetos, I believe is how it's pronounced. But I read this because this shows the magnitude of how much God loves his children. We were predestined for this elevation. This and don't I don't want to bash anything or anybody or any way of thinking, but the Calvinists will use this as the predestined thing. They'll try to say, well, God chose you before you were born that you were going to be saved. And I kind of have a problem with that, because God knows all. He is sovereign, and I understand that. But I think what we leave out a lot of times is he knows the end from the beginning. He knows the beginning from the end. So it's like he is outside of time. He knows who is going to hear his word, who is going to accept this gift of grace. He knows who is going to come to him. But it doesn't mean that we are predestined from, we shouldn't be in that mindset, because, I was listening to something, I was talking to somebody, and I was listening to something, and, it kind of plays the next thing in the loop, and it just happened to be a John MacArthur sermon on predestination, and I was like, this is, and I kind of kept listening to it because I was just wanting to see the side of it, the different sides of it here, and I thought, the whole thing that's missed here is how God is outside of time. Yes, he's sovereign. Yes, he loves his all of his children. He loves and I've got some verses here coming up, but it just it shows the all-encompassing power of the love of God. That he, before the foundation, that he understood and knew that there would be people that would turn away, but he wanted to make that path to him, that way that we could be saved. So this is going to be in the Amplified. In John 1, you got some examples here. Verse 12. But to as many as did receive and welcome him, he gave the right, the authority, and the privilege to become children of God. That is, to those who believe in, adhere to, trust in, and rely on his name, who were born not of blood, natural conception, nor of the will of the flesh, physical impulse, nor of the will of man, that of a natural father, but of God. That is a divine and supernatural birth. They are born of God, spiritually transformed, renewed, and sanctified. This is open to, he gave us the right, this is not something that he has got a narrow view of, for as many as did receive and welcome him, that kind of blows the previous verse and using it and twisting it to the predestined, thinking out of the water for me, that, to as many as did receive and welcome him, that's a question of our free will and what we're going to decide, to do. And in Revelation 3, starting in 19, this is in the Amplified as well. Those whom I dearly and tenderly love, I rebuke and discipline, showing them their faults and instructing them. So be enthusiastic and repent. Change your inner self, your old way of thinking, your sinful behavior. Seek God's will. Behold, I stand at the door of the church and continually knock. If anyone hears my voice and opens the door, I will come in and eat with him, restore him, and he with me. He who overcomes the world through believing that Jesus is the Son of God, I will grant to him the privilege to sit beside me on my throne. as I also overcame and sat down beside my Father on his throne. He who has an ear, let him hear and heed what the Spirit says to the churches. And again here, standing at the door knocking. Now that shows to me that there is a decision on the part of us. You know, there's a decision there that we have to, okay, am I going to open that door? Am I going to ignore that knocking until it just fades away and I don't hear it anymore? You know, there's a decision there that we make. So it, you know, the coming to Him part is completely up to us. It's not something, well, that person was born, he can never, you know, be saved, and I'm not really sure if that's the context that some believe, but that's what it sounded like to me after hearing a few messages on predestination. But you know, we have to understand that the love of God, well, you know, we can't understand completely and fully in our human form here what the love of God is and how intense it is. If people understood the gravity and the seriousness of what the love of God is, they would fall on their faces in tears, you know. And there's several accounts where this happened, you know, just being in the presence of such a loving God, you know, and I'm going to go through a few of the examples of when this happened. I didn't put those up there. I left that slide up there from the last one, but in Isaiah, these are all in the King James Version. Isaiah chapter 6, verse 1. In the year that King Uzziah died, I saw also the Lord sitting upon a throne, high and lifted up, and his train filled the temple. Above it stood the seraphims. Each one had 6 wings. With twain he covered his face, and with twain he covered his feet, and with twain he did fly. And one cried unto another and said, Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts. The whole earth is full of his glory. And the posts of the door moved at the voice of him that cried, and the house was filled with smoke. Then said I, Woe is me, for I am undone, because I am a man of unclean lips, and I dwell in the midst of people of unclean lips. For mine eyes have seen the King, the Lord of hosts. He was so overwhelmed in, you know, just seeing the glory of God that he fell to his face. You know, it's actually it's a very repetitive thing once you get to reading through these. In Acts chapter 9, verse 3, and as he journeyed, he came near Damascus, and suddenly there shined round about him a light from heaven, and he fell to the earth and heard a voice saying unto him, Saul, Saul, why persecutest thou me? And he said, Who art thou, Lord? And the Lord said, I am Jesus whom thou persecutest. It is hard for thee to kick against the pricks. And he trembled and astonished said, Lord, what wilt thou have me to do? And the Lord said unto him, Arise and go into the city, and it shall be told thee what you must do. And the men which journeyed with him stood speechless, hearing a voice, but seeing no man. And Saul rose from the earth, and when his eyes were open, he saw no man, but they led him by the hand and brought him into Damascus. It was so overpowering, the vision of the glory and the love of God that would come and intercept him in his daily activity. He was just on the road traveling to Damascus, and the love of God interfered in his life, and he was raptured at that moment, you know, raptured, and could not deny who Christ was at that point, you know, and it just shows the magnitude of you can't remain standing. You know, you can't remain standing if you have an encounter like this. In Ezekiel 1, as the appearance of the bow that is in the cloud in the day of the rain, so was the appearance of the brightness around about. This was the appearance of the likeness of the glory of the Lord, and when I saw it, I fell upon my face and heard a voice of one that spake. Again, you know, the magnitude, just the, you know, unless we have a personal encounter, you know, like this, we have no idea what the love of God entails. You know, this This is not something that we should be throwing around, in society, this word love, and trying to bring down the love of God to man's understanding and to man's level of what they think love is. And this is what we see. This is what we see in our daily lives. And just as like you were saying, the trip to Walmart. I've been feeling this for years, but ever since about a year and a half ago, well, especially a year and a few months ago, a lot of these places you go into, and there's so much more restrictions. And they're easing up now, but I kept joking around because I thought, well, this feels like I'm walking into a communist country, because you walk in there and they, do this, and you walk through these gates and you walk the other way and it's like all these sirens go off and it's like, what did I just walk into here, but you feel that oppressive spirit, in some of these places, and it is, like I said, sometimes I try to go in there and I just try to pop something edifying in my ear and listen to it, because otherwise you're just listening to nonstop messages, social distancing, blah, blah, blah. They play that on a loop, and they play these different songs on a loop, and some of them are so loud you can't hear yourself think, and you walk out of there with a headache, and so I understand the oppressiveness that you're talking about. I understand, that feeling of walking in there and just being able to feel that spirit, that cloud that's over that area. And but if we have the love of God, that stuff, we can repel that stuff. It's an amazing thing. Just get in the Word, or start praising, worshiping. Edifying yourself, and you escape that. You're brought out of that place. So I don't know why I didn't get these verses put on there, but John 3:16, very, very familiar verse here. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. For God sent not his Son into the world to condemn the world, but that the world through him might be saved. And this is another shot here that I see. It's those who are chosen. It doesn't say but that those who are chosen through him might be saved. It's that the world. This is a call to whoever is going to listen. It kind of reminds me of the old network hubs. You have this network hub, and it broadcasts the signal to all of them, and then one of them might answer. That's expecting that call. But it was really a technology that was lacking, because it was like a universal broadcast out to everything that was plugged into this hub, and then you would have one answer back, basically. So it's kind of like that. I'm going to send this message of love out to the world, and I'm going to see who beckons back to me, who reaches back to me, who reaches out their hand, and I'm going to meet them there, and I'm going to understand that not everyone is going to come back, but there again in this verse, God so loved the world, so agapē the world. Not just he felt pity on the world, or I feel bad for him, I'm going to make a way. No, this is a love without. This is like a bottomless pit love. This is something that we can't understand. God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, and I used to hear people try to equate this with different stories of and I'm really not sure if they were true or not, but they would say, well, this person had to make a decision. It was either going to be their son was going to they had to lower this drawbridge or raise this drawbridge or something. A train was coming. Their son would be down there playing in the mechanics of the bridge, and they had to make a choice. Are they going to let everybody on that train perish, or were they going to flip the switch, and knowing their son's down there? And I'm like, even that does not encompass what the love of God is. It's so much so that we can't wrap our minds around it. But we see the evidence, every day. with those things that he does for us, even in the smallest little, smallest little things that we think, well, this is kind of a crazy thing to be rejoicing for, but in those things, that's where he is, and he understands those. He understands those situations and those circumstances that stress us the most, and we all have different levels of stress. Some people, it's just one little thing, and we're like, well, I would just take care of that in 10 minutes, and it weighs on somebody for months, because they fear so greatly. But 2 Peter chapter 3, verse 8, but beloved, be not ignorant of this one thing, that one day is with the Lord as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years is one day. The Lord is not slack concerning his promise, as some men count slackness, but is long-suffering to usward, not willing that any should perish, but all should come to repentance. This, like I said, this is that call out to everyone. This is how great the love of God is. And again here, but beloved. This is another form of that agapetos. This is a adjective, or I believe it's the adjective form of that. But anyway, what I'm saying is this runs throughout what God has for us. The agape love, the bottomless love, the one that doesn't expect anything in return, but is hoping that none should perish. Is not willing that any should perish, but all should come to repentance. He's sending this message of the love of God out, and hoping that we would answer that. That we would set our will aside, and then we would seek His will out in everyday life. And minute by minute, that we would not go 1 second without looking for Him in our day. And and I actually did want to show this, but I kind of showed what this represents. This love, and I kind of put it in these two different, because this is really love of self, and it's really the other as well. And the problem with having that selfish love, because it emboldens you in your sins and it satisfies your pleasures. But there's also a conditional statement to that kind of love. You're either in our group or you're not. If you're not, that love doesn't reach you. If you don't promote myself, if you don't affirm me, then you're outside of that love. And that's what I'm talking about. The different. That's why they had different terms for this love in the Greek language. There's such a specific thing, and we need to get back to that and understand. Okay, the world out there is just saying love is love, but what we need to understand is this love is selfish love. This love has conditions to it. This love, and start identifying that love, because there are Christians that are getting swept up into this. Well, love is love, and we are told to love one to another, in the Bible. But when you understand the agape love, that love that reaches out and doesn't have conditions to it, but also doesn't affirm sin, and doesn't allow those who are trying to twist that term, that love that that we have such a simple term for in the English language, and trying to twist that and to say, well, it's all the same. It's this. You can't make any. Love is love. It's all the same. This is how it's defined. And when we encounter that, we have to know, okay, there's a line here that has to be drawn, and I can't get caught up into affirming sin. And there's so many people that are. And it doesn't always have to be about the Pride Month or the Pride flag or that particular sin. There was a lot of the stuff going on last year where churches were being closed down, and they were just like, well, if the government says we can't worship, we can't worship. It's like, okay, but you got to understand that there's an authority that's greater than the government. There's an authority here that says that you are a leader of a flock. You are put in charge. You are in a position of authority and you're expected to represent, those godly things, and there's two different sides to that, and I understand that, but we have to understand that, that there's a greater calling than someone telling us when and where we can't meet or whatever. But, I feel like I've kind of been all over the place here, but at the same time, this was the word that was given to me this morning, the Agapē love of God, and I understand that, there's a lot of traps, there's a lot of battles out there every day that we can fall into just by saying, look, the world is going this way, and we can fall into this trap, but we have to stand, we have to know where our foundation is. Watching something the other night, and understanding how this understanding how the structure of the overall church, especially of the Western nations, are being crumbled. And they're being crumbled from the inside. They're being undermined in their foundation. Understanding where the attack is, and understanding where the compromise already is. And then we see that and we understand that, but we have to understand that we're fighting an uphill battle already because of everything that's been let in by those who are supposed to, guard the front door, So, we have to be vigilant in this and just understand the immensity of the love of God, and how much that we unless we get a special revelation of whatever the love of God is, we won't be able to comprehend you can't comprehend it. That's like knowing where the bounds of the universe is, and understanding the work that He's done. We discover stuff every year, so it's just understanding the completeness of God and understanding where that love comes from, and it's just an amazing thought, but we don't have to understand completely. We just have to know where that love comes from, and trust and have faith in Him, and have Him show us, okay, I need love for this person. This person really is really getting on my nerves. This person repeatedly does these things to me, and I don't know where that's coming from, but I need love for this person, and I can't do this on my own, and I've been in several positions like that, and I understand it. And I've learned that, well, I've always kind of been quiet anyway, but I've learned that the best thing to do is be quiet and have a little conversation with God, and understand that I need your help here, because if I respond in the flesh, this is not going to get any better, and it is frustrating, and I understand the frustrations, but we need to ask every day for that love of God.